Hey everybody, it's Master Galengeist here, bringing you my review of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness Season 1 on Netflix. And this is not good. Now, I am alright with the voice acting, I am alright with the graphics because it's all CGI, that's all very well done. However, the character development and the plot is really just like not good, even by Resident Evil standard. Now, here's the thing: I'm a fan of Resident Evil, and the thing is, I've kind of gotten more into it as the series has gone on. Now, granted, my first kind of entry into Resident Evil, granted, that I really got into because I did rent and play a little bit of like maybe the remake and RE0 before I really got into my groove and got into it at like around RE4's time. Now, granted, so I'm not completely as versed as I should be, but with what this does, it is just very kind of stupid, is the best kind of way to kind of put it. Because we get 4 episodes that honestly should have been edited better and put together as more of a movie. I don't know why, because I essentially just used it as a movie, except I had the added effect of being like, I shall go to the next episode now. So, the strangest thing is, this also kind of reuses kind of plot stuff that was kind of introduced in Resident Evil 6. Mainly, there's a government person high up that is behind all this shit, and they somehow tie it to China and all that kind of stuff. Because this plot does a lot of surface level things that goes nowhere near as deep as it kind of needs to be. Because it's doing a lot of stuff on the war on terror, on the use of bioweapons and everything, but that's about as far as it kind of gets. It pretty much just uses everything as window dressing, and you're like, alright. So we start off actually in 2000 as we see this one dude, Jason, leading his Mad Dogs team in pretty much combat maneuvers in Panamstan. And that's, I guess, some kind of like amalgamation Afghanistan kind of thing going on. But evidently it's close to China, and you get the socio-political stuff that, like, if you had a foothold there, you can apply pressure to China. And that's about as deep as the fucking strategizing of that shit goes. So, they're kind of going around, and they see one of their buddies gets down, and they're told not to go down and help him. And they're like, fuck that noise. And they'll, like, go down, they try and, like, help him, but, like, evidently some of them got, like, screwed up, and it's like, what the fuck's going on? Now we get into 6 years in the future, so we're in 2006. We see Claire Redfield is with this humanitarian aid, TerraSave kind of thing. And it's really strange because she looks kind of... I don't mind your character model, but I'm seeing this character model and I'm hearing the voice from like the RE2 make, and it's just like, it's kind of weird. That kind of happens also with Leon as well. And she's trying to figure out what's kind of going on here because she also sees that this kid is like mute because of the Civil War stuff going on, and evidently there were zombies and shit going on. I'm like, if things were like going on like that, wouldn't more of the news? I mean, granted, if you got enough of a coordinated effort, you'd be able to be like, hey, there were no zombies there, but I mean, there would be a lot of fucking physical evidence because. Yes, the media isn't a powerful thing, but if some motherfucker saw a zombie, and even if it's 2000, and had to deal with a zombie, you'd start to fucking know. Like, granted, there might not be physical evidence, but there'd be somebody shouting zombies and shit. Now, granted, war-torn country and shit like that, yeah, I could understand that information would take a while to get out. That's why it'd be like 6 years, but it's like, alright. So we see that, there's something going on at the White House, and we see that Leon's being taken in because they're going to be doing this whole kind of thing. And suddenly, there's a bioweapon attack on the White House with zombies that act like fucking no zombies that I've seen in Resident Evil before. It's like they fucking were like, let's do Resident Evil zombies, but let's also do 28 Days Later, because we see this, like, we see Jason is part of it. We see this Shen Mei character, and we see this like newbie dude, Patrick maybe. I don't really remember him much because all he does is freak out about the zombies, which then go kind of at his ass before like Leon comes and helps his noob ass out, and then that's about it. He then goes in the bunker, and he also kind of like tells the president to not do a thing. That's it. So they're kind of going around. They deal with the zombies and everything. We get some cool action shots and shit. We get some shots that are supposed to be like, hey, there's something going on between Jason and Shen Mei. It's like, I wonder what that will be. But evidently, this is to pretty much push that like somebody got into like some secret server shit, and they're like, this Wilson dude's like, it's China and shit. It's like, what the fuck? Oh, that's that dude that was like in the beginning in 2000 doing all this kind of shit. And it's like, all right, he's really pushing hard for China. I don't know why, but okay. And evidently they're going to do a covert mission to go and see what is going on in China, in Shanghai. And it's like, all right, you will learn that this really doesn't make much sense by either Jason and Shen Mei's shit going on or Wilson's. Unless he was pretty much trying to do it, be like, hey, this is pretty much being used to aggravate a war against China, and also using Phnom Penh as that kind of shit as well. So we had also seen that before the mission, Claire's like, hey, some shit's going on. I was like, deal with that shit in a minute. I gotta go do ditch shit. And it's really weird because Claire is pretty much useless save for one kind of plot demanded thing to throw something at someone. That's about it. I was really frustrated with what they did with Claire because she really did nothing. I mean, she investigated what was going on with Mad Dogs and how all of them were committing suicide, and that's about it. She really... And she barely even put shit together on her own. It's like, okay, she found shit, and it's like, okay, it's not like it's disparate enough to be like, oh, this is an algebraic equation where she actually figured it out. It's like, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. And if you cannot sandwich that together to figure out what's going on, you're a zombie. But I even think a zombie would figure that out at some point. I mean, I like Claire, and I like Leon, and I'm just like, why do you do this? So she's able to pretty much connect some shit together, and then she gets captured. I mean, I'm getting a little bit ahead, but that's pretty much her shit. Leon, in the sub, which is very fucking stupid, we find out that he has a type. He's like, hey, Shen Mei, you got a boyfriend or anything? I'm like, okay, he's got that type, and pretty much the secretive kind of type as well, in that I'm like, okay, you really got a hard on for Ada. All right, fine, whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, you got a boyfriend or one? I was like, yeah, but I don't know, that could change. It's like, okay, well, she's keeping shit from you, and we'll kind of get that done later on. And it's like, all right, Leon, you have to watch out for that shit. And then Jason pretty much spills the beans about like how they got infected and they got to use inhibitors and shit like that. Well, that's later on, but it's like, hey, we got caught up in all that stuff in Phnom Penh. I'm like, it was hell, man. And then we get Jason's whole shtick of like fear leads to terror, and that kind of spreading of shit. It's like, okay, what is your objective with using this terror and shit like that? Because that becomes the only god fucking damn thing he talks about. Like, okay, if you've seen Game of Thrones, and in the last season you're wondering what's going on with Jon Snow because McQueen, that is what happens here. He just keeps saying shit and not really elaborating on it. Gotta spread that terror. Gotta make them feel that shit. For what end? So they can feel what I feel. Okay, and what will that fucking accomplish? Okay. So, he's like, okay, shit went down. And then, for some odd and inexplicable reason, Jason and Shen Mei fucking... they're in a sub with another little sub. And their whole thing is they go around and they kill some people with knives. Now granted, because it's a sub, you don't want to shoot shit. But they also unleash a bioweapon. Now granted, we get like 3 bioweapons in this fucking season. Zombies, these things, and a goddamn tyrant thing. And guess what? They're fucking rats. Okay, let's kind of delve into this. Why am I making such a point of this? You don't just unleash a virus and then fucking rats pop out of, like, nowhere. Like, now honestly, the thing is, any kind of virus used in Resident Evil tends to go the MacGuffin route of, it will do whatever the fuck it does. That does not make it good, and that does not mean it's right. That it becomes that cliche and tropish in this for that shit to happen. So, if you had told me that, like, Shenmei or Jason had, like, infected one of these motherfuckers with the virus, and then they suddenly exploded in the rats, I would be like, what? But okay. Like, if you'd shown, like, oh god, I'm mutating, boom! Alright. We don't get that. Suddenly rats just pop out of nowhere. It's like looking like they've killed these people. And then Leon, in like some of the worst goddamn dialogue ever, is like, it's a bioweapon. No, Leon, it's a toaster with teeth. The fuck it is a bioweapon. It's fucking juking around like a goddamn crackhead. And it looks like it's got fucking red-eye laser beams. What tipped you off, bro? I mean, you fucking saved the president's daughter from like a goddamn spider-ass parasite thing. And if we like are into Resident Evil, I think the audience should be enough of a like into the universe enough to be like, that would probably be a bioweapon. You don't need to fucking say it. But granted, we do have Leon acting smart, where he gets into a corridor, the rats are going to come at his ass, he breaks a pipe, has some water, electrifies their asses. Pretty much the only smart thing I ever saw him do in this whole thing. That's saying something. So, he is able to get to the sub thing, and they're like, we don't... It's really kind of weird. They're like, I'm going to kill you. And it's like, I thought we were on a mission. And they're like, I guess we are? I, like, the amount of plot armor and the plot demands and conjiggering around for this shit really is kind of weird. Because, like, alright, so they get to Shanghai. And, of course, Jason's like, we're trying to do this government conspiracy and shit like that. And Leon... Leon, oh Leon. Now, I kind of put this down also to Resident Evil's general plot structuring, which is, fuck all, we all do whatever the fuck we want. Especially since they kind of, like, rip shit from other Resident Evil games. I don't mind homages, and I don't mind, like, foreshadowing certain events, but I'm just like, alright. And he's like, yeah, well, we got a government conspiracy that we're trying to, like, do shit with. And Leon just like, and I'm like, dude, Raccoon City, motherfucker. Like, you were goddamn there, and they, like, you electrified the rats. But you like, nah, man, that sounds like treason. I'm like, the government nuked a city and killed people that were still alive. And you're, like, you were talking about that last episode. And you're gonna be like, alright, you couldn't have at least, like, honestly, these guys should have killed you. Probably would have been advised to kill you, because if you are working with the president, who, well, granted, might not have been, wouldn't have been elected by the time everything's going on, but would have been told about everything going on with Raccoon City and everything with bioweapons, especially since his daughter was, like, kidnapped by a fucking cult that was fucking connected to that goddamn shit. You'd be like, I'm a thinking you gotta have something there. Especially since, I don't know, Umbrella was working with the fucking military to, like, do this shit. And we find out that, like, the one dude that we see them kind of rescue is Shenmei's brother. And this is how stupid Wilson is. Because he's, like, in charge of this as a general. And then he gets to SecDef, Secretary of Defense, and is like, we're gonna go after China. He evidently was sending in bioweaponized soldiers, or to test them or whatnot. It's kind of weird on that. I'm thinking he was sending in bioweapon soldiers, because that's kind of where it leads to, as we see the end of this come into sight. And just immediate, like, Like, he sends them in, they kind of go down. And these are supposed to be, like, your Captain America super soldier motherfuckers, right? He, like, immediately, like, nuke them. Now, granted, it's not complete nuking, but enough to, like, whack, like, destroy him. And it's like, okay. Evidently, that didn't, like, take out the Mad Dogs, and they're able to fucking cart around, Shen Mei's brother's corpse, and pretty much all the Mad Dogs got bit and needed these inhibitors to stop them from turning. And I'm just like, alright, I understand that, and if you got the inhibitors, you're pretty much like super, well, I don't know, super. It's almost like more of a complete and utter hindrance than actually a super soldier thing. Because you'd be like, alright, are you stronger? Are you faster? Do you heal better? Do you have less pain? We've seen none of this except that, like, Shen Mei's brother has lost all of his limbs. And it's like, take all the inhibitors before it turns into a zombie, and you guys turn into zombies. It's like, what? Oh, god damn it. But I'm just like, alright, what's the point of sending in these motherfuckers if you're just gonna be like, they stubbed their toes, nuke them. What? What's the point of these motherfuckers then? What? Alright, cool, whatever. So, Jason's unit of the Mad Dogs got infected, so they were pretty much used by Wilson to do dark ops around. And the thing is, we don't really get to see anything about that. We don't even really get told much about it, because pretty much his whole squad kills themselves because they don't like doing this shit. Understandable, and that's the only way they see out, otherwise turning into a zombie and probably spreading the infection like a motherfucker. So they're like, don't do that. And it's really kind of weird that they have that introduced, mainly because it's just like, oh, okay. Like, they don't really delve as much into it. So bringing that back around, because that gets, Claire sees one of them that has killed themselves, and pretty much gets brought in that way, and then gets captured by Wilson. Leon's like, fuck you, Jason, and pretty much shoots him in a place that should have killed him, but not. Shen Mei is like, what the fuck? And she starts running, but Leon's able to tail her to her grandpa's house. Yes, literally, her grandpa's house, where they've got him alive, and she's able to tell him everything going on. And like, we got his data chip, so we can do this. And then for some reason, Jason burns the house down, which kills her grandpa and her brother. Well, her brother's turned into some, like, whack, like, he's got, like, some chrysalis shit going on. I'm just like, can you explain how he is, granted, he doesn't have any limbs. Okay. If he just pretty much turned zombie and hasn't mutated since, it doesn't make sense why he would start mutating more now. It's really kind of weird. And the thing is, I don't need complete concrete answers, but I gotta know context of why certain things happen. What are the rules? If the rules are I can do whatever the fuck I want, screw you, the plot doesn't have to make sense, I don't need to invest my time into that. Makes me think of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. Holy fucking shit. Anyway, Leon's like, alright, let's get back to there. And we then, somehow, they get from China to the fucking US, even though for some reason you'd think tensions would be high because Wilson's like, push this shit on China, do a war. Because they're doing their whole stuff with Phnom-Stan, and it's like, alright, because the president's going to do a more kind of bellicose speech, but because Leon's able to get Mr. Newbie agent dude to, like, talk about everything, he's able to, like, stop that. Now, granted, that's more at the end, and we get, like, a president that actually listens. It's like, holy fucking shit, and doesn't go for, like, the asshole route, and like, yeah, we're just going to work with our friends and help them out, and make sure that their country's better. It's like, yay, okay, I kind of like that. But before we get to that, we got to get to the stupid shit that goes on underneath. Wilson's pretty much like, Claire, work with me, I'll build the hospitals and schools if you just shut the fuck up. She's like, eat my ass. He's like, fine, I can just infect you and make sure that you're hooked on this inhibitor shit. And then it's like, alright. And then Jason's like, eat me. And it's like, screw you, motherfucker. And then he, for some reason, turns into a tyrant because, of course, it's Resident Evil. The MacGuffin cycle must be fulfilled. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And then he bites him. And he's like, ah, shit, I need a fucking inhibitor. And then he walks up, he's like running away. And then, of course, a bioweapon is out in the open. It's like, containment protocols. Let us pour acid in and start injecting all these people in these pods. It's like, alright. And Jason's pretty much just screaming about fear and terror and spreading terror. and be like, rah, 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 rah. Claire is given shit to do, i.e., she is tied to a chair, and we watch her try and struggle with the duct tape and getting out and not getting burnt by the acid. I don't really count that though, but it has time devoted to it because they think that it's important to the plot, even though it's not. So then we get Leon and Shen Mei trying to talk his ass down. I'm like, come on, this isn't you. Don't do this shit. You don't have to do this, man. Come on. And for some reason, he kills Shen Mei. I have no fucking reason why he kills Shen Mei. It's not like he's going crazy or anything like that. He's just like, I'm gonna go do this, as he's pretty much punching his way out of this thing to try and get to the president's thing. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, all right. And Leon's pretty much like trying to blast him with shit. Blast his arm off with like a fucking 50 cal sniper, but it's like close range and shit. He's like, eat me, and then he like knocks him down. But him and Claire get to like upper levels. Claire uses something to kind of knock his ass out and stop like platforms and shit. It's like, okay, cool. And Leon's able to kind of like force him down in the ass. He's like, yeah, now you will spread the fear and terror and shit like that. It's like, I fucking don't care. Why is this important? Because evidently this factors into Leon's decision to not give Claire the data shit and put it out into the public. It is the stupidest decision, and it is not something that I would think that Leon would do. Now, granted, you could make it a more reasonable way for Leon to make that decision, but they don't pick that. And we also get some interaction with them, and evidently Leon treats Claire like a kid, even though we haven't really seen much of that throughout this at all, even though it's been fucking almost a decade since Raccoon City, and they're just like, yeah, and they leave pissed off at each other, and we see I had a weird kind of thing. I don't know if it was just my thing or my stream, but the way Leon was walking afterwards was janky as fuck, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? But that is kind of where it ends, where Leon is a douche canoe being like, I understand that he's probably scared of like the terror and all that kind of shit like that, but the thing is, you fear more the things that are unknown. And then if, I don't know, I'm walking around and like some motherfucker just unleashes a bio attack and shit like that, and you just keep fucking hiding that shit, then I'm just gonna be like, hey, default mode, everything's a fucking bioweapon. It's, if you give that information to the people, granted, yeah, there's gonna be some that are gonna fucking lose their asses over it. But there's also going to be people that'll be like, okay, I got this information, and I'm going to try and do something better and hold these people accountable and try and do and move better into the future. You know? It is such a weird kind of thing to leave thematically on everything. But the thing is, there's like no consistency and no true depth going on here. There's even not really enough action to really justify this as an action piece. It's like, alright, I've seen a lot of other things that have done action better than this. So, if you're a Resident Evil fan, sure, go for it. I think you'd be more pissed off depending upon where you find yourself in how you got into the series. Action fan, not really, because it's not really that good and it's not really that engaging. I wouldn't really even have it off in the background. Definitely not for little kids, even though it's like kind of basic. Definitely not for kids or whatnot. If you're not into scary shit, definitely don't go for it. This was just not good. Alright, now, I'd say, if you enjoyed it, I'm glad for that. I don't want to take that enjoyment away from you. Alright? Just having the balance of like what this thing does wrong and what it could do better and enjoying it, you can do that, man. It's hard. Trust me. I get that. I enjoy, like, always go back to my example of The Meg. It is a funny, stupid, silly goddamn film that has multitudes of problems, but it's Jason Statham fighting a giant shark. So, yes, it is not a good movie, but I can still have fun with it and not think it is good. It's It's a fine line. I understand that. And I just really wish that this was a lot better. And I I don't fault the actors or anything. I could definitely understand when there's a schism between the talent that is involved and what they are trying to do and actually sell, and when there is content that is just like, what the fuck? No way. Now, granted, I've also seen other stuff where, well, it's a lot harder when your actors are going nuts to tell if the content is good or not, because usually you've got that kind of screening it and you're like, I don't know if this content is good. So I was very disappointed in this, and I don't know if I would watch a second season or whatever the fuck this thing is, because honestly this should have been a movie, or like call it a mini series or something like that, because other, like, if you're saying seasons you're kind of implying that you do more than one, but I'm like, no, fuck, God, no. Ugh. So those are my opinion. Those are my opinions on the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.